Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is the Sentinel, watching over Geekdom, and welcome back to another Sentinel vlog. As you can see, this is another special Sentinel vlog, as this month, July 2019, Big Finish will be celebrating their 20th anniversary. Well, actually that's inaccurate. To clarify, it's actually Big Finish's 20th anniversary of doing Doctor Who audios. But let's be honest, that's a bit of a mouthful, so to simplify things, I'll just be saying 20th anniversary. Last year, to celebrate Doctor Who's 55th anniversary, I did a video listing my favorite televised story for each Doctor, the 1st through the 12th. So this year, for this anniversary, I will be listing my favorite audio for each Doctor. Like my 55th anniversary list, we have a few ground rules here. Before we begin, just a little guide about how I considered everything. First, everything presented is my personal opinion. If you disagree with what you see, that's fine. Please, I encourage you to comment and talk about it. I love conversation, I love debate. Second, these are my favorite audios for each Doctor. These are not the best. If these were the best, this would be a completely different list. A list that might include, for example, Farewell Great Macedon, Spare Parts, and Master, to name a few. But, as it stands, once again, not best, just personal favorites. And finally, I will only be covering the 1st through the War Doctor. The 9th, 11th, and 12th Doctors have only had one release so far, I believe. The 9th and 11th Doctor Chronicles, respectively, and the 12th Doctor had a short trip. And so I believe just saying, oh, these Doctors only have one release, so it's automatically this, that seems a little unfair. Similarly, I've only heard one 10th Doctor adventure, and yeah, the 10th Doctor Adventures is not a range I have any real interest in, and similarly, just to say, oh, I've only heard this one, so it's automatically the best, again, it just seems unfair. So I'll only be doing the 1st through the War Doctors, and then stick around at the end because I'll be talking about a couple of extra audios. So let's just get started. My favorite 1st Doctor audio is TikTok World from the 1st Doctor Adventures, Volume 3, written by Guy Adams. Now, the 1st Doctor has what I believe is the most varied range of audios. He doesn't have as many releases as some of the other Doctors, but I do think he has the most variety. The early adventures, short trips, companion chronicles, the 1st Doctor adventures. And I've said this before in the past as well. Keep in mind, when I say this, William Hartnell is the OG. He is the best. I'm not disputing that. But of the 4 actors who have stepped up to play the 1st Doctor in Hartnell's absence, Richard Hurndall in the 5 Doctors, William Russell and Peter Purves in Big Finish, and David Bradley in New Who in Big Finish, David Bradley is my personal favorite. TikTok World sees the Doctor, Ian, Barbara, and Susan crash land in a world where the rules of time are constantly in flux. And trust me, that is the easiest way to explain this story. I can't really go into any more detail than that. Part of why I like this story so much is this is the story that finally won me over with Claudia Grant as Susan. Now, recasting some of the characters in the Doctor Who universe has been, putting it mildly, controversial. Some people like them, some people despise them. I'm kind of in the mid. I'm kind of take it or leave it. I don't mind either way, but suffice to say, Claudia Grant as Susan has been my least favorite. And this is the story that finally won me over. She gives a wonderful performance here. And there's this great arc, not just here, but in the entire 1st Doctor Adventures Volume 3 box set, about Susan having to learn to grow up, learning that she can't rely on her grandfather and coming into her own. And in a way, it's kind of a precursor to the Daleks' master plan. Carol Ann Ford, the original Susan, is also in this story playing the woman. And she spends most of her scenes with David Bradley. The two have great chemistry and play off each other really well. There's so much more I want to say, but I have to stop there because I don't want to spoil the ending. Well, no, not the ending, but the climax. The climax is absolutely amazing. Next up, for my favorite second Doctor audio, from the Early Adventures range, it's Simon Guerrier's The Black Hole. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to A Short Trip, because this story was neck and neck with A Short Trip for my favorite second Doctor audio. And if you haven't heard The Last Day at Work, go seek it out. It's free on the Big Finish website, and it is absolutely amazing. Now, The Black Hole sees the second Doctor, Jamie and Victoria, arrive on a ship trying to survive a black hole. There's so much going on that survive is really the simplest way to explain it. This story also sees the debut of a new incarnation of the meddling monk, played by Rufus Hound, who is just an absolute delight. He is hilarious, he's imposing, not so much threatening, he's mischievous, because the monk really isn't evil like the master or like the master. He's just mischievous. He's a trickster. And where to go from there? There's a lot going on in this story. It's a great cat and mouse game kind of story. My only real critiques are how this sort of tries to swerve around and avoid a very popular fan theory in the Doctor Who fandom, one that I even like, called Season 6B. And that's all I'm going to say. To go into detail would be a lot. My other big critique, and I really hate having to call this out, I really do, is Deborah Watling is the weak link of this story. It's just, some actors in Big Finish, it feels like they haven't aged. It feels like they never left the role. Some actors, you can tell they've aged, you can tell their voices have changed, but the character is still there. It still feels like the character. And just Deborah Watling's voice, as she aged, changed so drastically that it was kind of distracting. Especially when you remember that when she traveled with the Doctor, Victoria was 14 years old. But, it's not bad, it's just distracting, and I do still really enjoy this story, and I enjoy Deborah Watling, but, yeah. The Black Hole! I highly recommend checking it out. Next up is the third Doctor, and we have another collection here. Yeah, you're going to see quite a couple of collection/box set releases on this list, but my favorite third Doctor audio is The Tyrants of Logic from the Third Doctor Adventures Volume 4. As you can see on your display here as well, unlike other box set releases, the Third Doctor Adventures are released in jewel case, so no individual covers. Now, this story sees the Doctor face off against the Cybermen, which in the expanded universe, books, comics, audios, is a really popular thing to do because on TV, the Third Doctor famously never encountered the Cybermen. He and the Ninth Doctor are the only ones not to. And this plays out like a very standard Cybermen story, but I don't mind that. In fact, when it comes to just your average run-of-the-mill standard stories, I'd take a standard Cyberman story over a standard Dalek story any day. Now, where do I want to go from there? But there is a lot I like about this story. I like the style of Cybermen they use. They use the Tom Baker Cybermen from Revenge of the Cybermen. You can tell because of the sound effect of their weapons. I like the side characters. They're distinct, they're developed without being quirky. I mean, one of them is quirky, but I feel like that's kind of a thing the new series does a lot. It's just, the side characters need to be quirky. And after a while, it does kind of get a little tedious, let's say. But yeah, the side characters here, there's only one quirky one, and he's actually a really cool character. The rest are just very distinct, very well developed. I also like the atmosphere of this story. It really feels like a dying world, which is where this story kind of takes place. Keep in mind, as I've said in the past, I haven't heard all of the Third Doctor adventures yet. At this point, I have yet to hear volumes 2 and 3. But I believe that the Tyrants of Logic, so far, even with volume 5 having just come out, this is Tim Treloar's best performance as the Third Doctor. And I love his chemistry with Katie Manning. The Third Doctor and Jo is one of my favorite Doctor-companion dynamics, and even though it's not Jon Pertwee, it feels like that chemistry between those characters is still there. The most popular Doctor of all time is up next, and my favorite Fourth Doctor audio is the two-part The Perfect Prisoners by John Dorney, the finale to the Fourth Doctor Adventures Series 8. Now, if you followed me on my channel, you know I reviewed the Fourth Doctor Adventures Series 8 episode by episode, so hopefully I don't have to say too much here. I'll even try to include a link in the description below or an annotation to send you over to those reviews. I will also say that this was a fairly recent change. Before this, my favorite Fourth Doctor story was Night of the Vashta Nerada from Classic Doctor's New Monsters Volume 2. But yeah, The Perfect Prisoners. Again, I'm going to try and ghost over this one really fast. Very fun story. Very sort of swashbuckling. The villains are all great. Especially the main villain. He has a really good voice and he's just deliciously evil. Jane Slavin's Ann Kelso is one of my favorite companions, and I just love how bittersweet her exit at the end of this story is. And I also love all the little twists we get with Ann Kelso. And yeah, like I said, I already reviewed them. You can watch the videos for those reviews, and let's just jump right on. Move right on. Wow. The Fifth Doctor is next, and my favorite audio is Not Spare Parts. If you're new to Big Finish, Spare Parts is often considered one of the best Big Finish stories of all time, so that's the joke. But no, actually we're going to another box set, Classic Doctor's New Monsters Volume 1, and my favorite Fifth Doctor audio is Fallen Angels by Phil Mulryne. This sees the Doctor in Renaissance-era Italy teaming up with Michelangelo to battle the Weeping Angels. I find it extremely fitting that it's the Fifth Doctor facing the Weeping Angels. Which, fun fact if you were unfamiliar, Stephen Moffat, the former showrunner and writer who created the Weeping Angels, his favorite Doctor is Peter Davison. And you'd think going into this that this story wouldn't work because the Weeping Angels are purely a visual monster. But I find that this story works very well. Yes, they do the angels just as a sound cue, but it is very effective. I also like Joel and Gabby, who play one-off companions to the Fifth Doctor in this story. Michelangelo is fun being portrayed as a crotchety old man. There's a lot of humor interspersed without, and just a fun little comparison for you. This story involves the companions, Joel and Gabby, the one-off companions, being displaced in time by the angels. The Doctor then goes back in time to fight the angels in the period they're trapped in, and because of time loop stuff, time nonsense, Joel and Gabby cannot go back to the present. Spoilers, I know. This story is basically a much better version of The Angels Take Manhattan. Also, I would just take a moment to say that if you're new to Big Finish, Classic Doctor's New Monsters, either Volume 1 or Volume 2, is a great starting point. Yes, they're box sets and they're a little pricier, but each story shows off a different Doctor. They're only an hour long. Each story is self-contained. So it's a really good starting point, and it's a great sort of sample platter. My favorite Doctor is up next, and what's my favorite Sixth Doctor audio? The Wormery, written by Stephen Cole and Paul Mars. This story, set immediately after Trial of a Time Lord, sees the Doctor at an interdimensional nightclub called Bianca's, trying to forget about the ordeal he just experienced. But, as we all know, if the Doctor doesn't answer the call to adventure answers him, and he soon finds mischief afoot. This story also sees the Doctor teaming up with another character in the Doctor Who universe played by Katie Manning, Iris Wildthyme. A character that can only be summed up as the Deadpool of Doctor Who. There's a lot of great moments in the Wormery, and this is really, chronologically anyway, which we're not getting into, the start of the Sixth Doctor sort of softening from that hard, cruel, cold man he was in season 22 into the softer person he became in the audios. Colin and Katie have great chemistry, and they play off each other really well. And if you're familiar with Iris Wildthyme, if you're unfamiliar with Iris Wildthyme, or you want to check out her spin-off, this story is a great starting point. It gives you an idea of who Iris is and what her character is like. I will also say briefly that I have listened to more Sixth Doctor audios than any of the other Doctors, so determining my favorite Sixth Doctor audio was probably the hardest. Runner-ups include Jubilee, The Holy Terror, The Brink of Death, from The Last Adventure, and I even thought about going into spin-off territory and considered World Enough in Time from the Diary of River Song Series 2. But ultimately, for me, at least for right now, the Wormery won out. For my favorite Seventh Doctor audio, it's John Dorney's The Two Masters. For the longest time, I almost didn't consider listing this audio. I tried to think of something else to list because the Seventh Doctor in this story almost really plays a background role, because really the spotlight is on Geoffrey Beevers and Alex McQueen, the titular Two Masters, but I just couldn't do it. I love this story. It is absolute fun. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Geoffrey Beevers and Alex McQueen play off each other really well as competing, feuding, but also allied masters, which shows fundamentally why a multi-master story doesn't work. Because the master is someone who will climb on top of you in order to come out on top, even if it means it's one of his other incarnations. And yeah, there's really nothing. Well, there is one more thing to say to that. Unlike some of the other stories where you could, if you're familiar with Doctor Who, you could just sort of get them and jump in, you can't do that with the Two Masters. You need the previous two stories in this trilogy, and You Will Obey Me and Vampire of the Mind, to understand what's going on here. So just, if you try to listen to this story on its own, just be warned, you might be a little lost. Seasons of Fear by Carolyn Simcox and Paul Cornell takes the spot of my favorite Eighth Doctor audio. This story sees the Doctor and his companion Charlie Pollard chase a man named Sebastian Grail through time and space as he tries to bring about the end of Earth, because he claims to have killed the Doctor. Now, when I first started the Eighth Doctor audios, they didn't really engage me. They weren't bad, except Minuet in Hell. They just didn't catch me. Now, Seasons of Fear was the first one to actually catch me, and so far, from what Eighth Doctor audios I've heard, it's the one I enjoy the most. This story is incredibly fun. Sebastian Grail is a great villain, and there's also kind of a fun twist on it because sort of without realizing it, although he does catch on, this is a villain the Doctor created. It also does something. It also makes really great use of a monster from a not very popular, not very well liked Tom Baker story. And that's all I'm going to say, because this story is only $2.99 on the Big Finish website. Get it and hear it for yourself. You will not be disappointed. And we're up to Sir John Hurt's War Doctor, and my favorite audio is Andrew Smith's The Lady of Obsidian, from the War Doctor Volume 4, Casualties of War. Now, the reveal of the War Doctor is very anticlimactic. On paper, if you look at the scripts, he is such a generic doctor, which, because of all the build-up to the atrocities he committed in the Time War, this was such a disappointment. The only thing that makes the War Doctor stand out is that he's played by Sir John Hurt. I imagine if he was played by anyone else, he would probably be my least favorite Doctor. But John Hurt is awesome, so that definitely bumps him up in the ranking a little bit. The Lady of Obsidian sees the War Doctor tracking down a guerrilla group led by the titular Lady of Obsidian, who, to his surprise, is his old companion, Leela. And that's really what puts this story over the top for me among the other War Doctor stories, because Louise Jameson is amazing in this story. She's playing an older version of Leela who was severely damaged by the Time War, and I believe this is Jameson's best performance as Leela, hands down. I mean, there's a lot of other good things in this story too. The main villain, because the Daleks kind of take a back seat in this story, the main villains are an interesting concept and an interesting idea, although I don't think they're fully utilized. Cardinal Illustra, played by Jacqueline Pierce, has a really great subplot about, being very undermanned as she tries to defend a planet from the Daleks, which serves as a really good arc for her because she never would have done this previously. There's really nothing more to say on this one. Now that's the end of the main list, but I've still got a couple more audios I want to talk about, starting with Perry and the Piscon Paradox by Nev Fountain. This is a companion chronicle that's told in 2 parts about the Doctor, the 5th Doctor, and Perry attempting to stop an aquatic Piscine alien named Zarl from attacking the Earth. But the twist is Perry finds herself teaming up with an older version of herself. Meanwhile, Part 2 sees that older version of Perry teaming up with the 6th Doctor to make sure the events of this adventure play out like they're supposed to. So, why am I talking about this story in particular? Because this very well may be my favorite Big Finish Doctor Who story of all time. I'm not saying it is, but it's very well in the running, and as of right now, it's my favorite. Nicola Bryant is absolutely phenomenal in this story, especially in Part 2, where she plays the older story, and Part 1 is very standard Doctor Who adventure, but Part 2 is where this story shines, and I really can't say anything more than that without getting into spoilers. Just get this story, and trust me, you will not be disappointed. Next up is Full Fathom 5 from Doctor Who Unbound, written by David Bishop. This is a what-if story, and it follows the premise of what if the Doctor believed the ends justified the means. This story is told in 2 parts. The main plot, the flashback is the Doctor going to this underground lab to try and stop horrific genetic experiments being carried out. And then the main plot is the Doctor returning to this lab several years later to try and clean up his unfinished business. This story is amazing. And David Collings is my favorite non-canon Doctor. It's just brutal and tense, and the performances are all top-notch. And the last story on this list I'll be talking about is The Light at the End by Nicholas Briggs. This was Big Finish's big 50th anniversary story, alongside the 50th anniversary story on TV, The Day of the Doctor. And of the two, this is a much better story. This sees the 4th through the 8th Doctors teaming up to try and stop the Master from erasing the Doctor from existence. The first 3 Doctors are there too, in a much more limited capacity. Think how they did William Hartnell in the 3 Doctors. That's kind of what their role is. The Light at the End also happens to be my favorite multi-Doctor story. Now, there isn't so much of a team-up in this story, not until the very end, but each Doctor does get a moment in the spotlight. Jeffrey Beavers is great as the Master, as always, and I do like the story. One of my complaints about the multi-Doctor stories is, after the 3 Doctors, it feels like as they went on, the threats the Doctors faced became less and less deserving or necessary of needing multiple Doctors to stop that. Because the Master is trying to erase the Doctor from history in this story, that's not an issue. This feels like a well-deserved threat. This feels like it needs the multiple Doctors to stop them. And one of my favorite scenes in this story is when the 5th Doctor confronts the Master. It's such a good scene. This also has a really great arrangement of the Doctor Who theme, and yeah, this is just another really good one. So these were my favorite Big Finish Doctor Who audios. What are some of yours? Please start a conversation in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, then click the little bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload. In the description box below, you'll find the link to my Twitter, where you can get updates on me and the channel, and you'll find the link to my Ko-fi, where you could consider supporting the channel. Happy 20th anniversary, Big Finish! This is the Sentinel, watching over Geekdom, and I'll see you guys next time.